Some movies don't shout their presence, they whisper. They crawl under your skin quietly until you realize you're trapped inside someone else's mind. David Cronenberg's Spider is exactly that kind of film, a haunting descent into memory, guilt, and madness. Starring Ralph Fiennes, Miranda Richardson, and Gabriel Byrne, it's one of Cronenberg's most overlooked works. In fact, it is a film that trades his trademark body horror for something more intimate and disturbing. I think it's the horror of a disordered mind. The story follows Dennis Clegg, known as Spider, a man recently released from a mental institution who returns to his childhood neighborhood in East London. It's a bleak industrial landscape which is washed in shades of brown and grey, mirroring his fractured psyche. He moves into a halfway house run by Mrs. Wilkinson, played by Lynn Redgrave, who offers him a quiet room and a chance to rebuild his life. But instead of rebuilding, Spider starts remembering, or perhaps reconstructing, fragments of his past that may not be entirely real. But why this reminds me of Memento, I don't know. Now let's get back. Through the disjointed memories, we see Spider as a boy living with his devoted mother and his detached, hard-drinking father. Then comes Yvonne, a brash woman his father seems to desire. Both women, however, are played by Miranda Richardson, a brilliant and unsettling decision by Cronenberg that visually represents Spider's mental collapse. As he relives these moments, Spider's understanding of what happened, especially to his mother, becomes more confused. Did his father truly murder her and replace her with Yvonne? Or did the Spider's own guilt twist reality into something unrecognizable? Cronenberg crafts the film like a puzzle and refuses to be solved. His camera moves slowly, deliberately, focusing on the smallest details, like a strand of string, a crack in the wall, a rusted pipe. Now every object feels like part of Spider's psychological architecture. This is not just a movie about revelation, but about disintegration. The more Spider remembers, the less certain we are that everything he recalls ever happened. Ralph Fiennes delivers one of the most understated performances here. Now that's why I like this actor. There's barely any dialogue. His language is the tremor of his hands, the shuffling of his steps, the muttering of half-informed thoughts. Now he inhabits this role so completely that you stop seeing the actor and only see the damaged man. Miranda Richardson in her dual role is magnetic. She moves effortlessly between warmth and vulgarity, between a saintly mother and the seductive other woman. Gabriel Byrne's cold masculinity meanwhile gives the film its anchor of menace. Everyone here plays a fragment of Spider's perception, a projection of his inner world. Cronenberg, who builds his reputation on physical transformations in films like The Fly and Dead Ringers, turns inward this time. Spider is body horror turned psychological. It's like the breakdown of mind instead of flesh. The cinematography by Peter Susitsky captures the decay with muted tones and a sense of suffocating stillness. Every frame feels damp, heavy, and claustrophobic. The soundtrack by Howard Shore hums softly in the background, almost imperceptible, like the distant sound of thoughts refusing to die. One of the most powerful motifs is the film in Spider is the obsession with string. He uses bits of twine to create webs in his room. It's like a literal manifestation of his tangled thoughts. These webs are both a coping mechanism and a cage, and his memories spiral. He becomes caught in them, unable to escape the trauma he's woven for himself. By the end, we finally glimpse the truth, that his memories are unreliable, and that his guilt may stem from something darker than we imagined. The revelation is quietly devastating. The tragedy of Spider is not what happened to him, but what he cannot accept. Now, let's talk about how the world received this film. When Spider premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 2002, it was met with admiration but also confusion. Critics praised Cronenberg's restraint and Ralph Fiennes' haunting performance, but warned that the pacing would test the viewer's patience. Roger Ebert described it as cold, sad, and hopeless, awarding it 3 out of 4 stars, which admiring its precision but acknowledging its emotional distance. Many call it one of Cronenberg's most mature works, though one that deliberately isolates its audience. In fact, the film sits at 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, with critics recognizing it as a masterclass in psychological storytelling, while some felt it was too detached from mainstream appeal. And that detachment showed in its box office run. With a modest budget of around 8 million, Spider crossed only about 5 million worldwide, making it a commercial disappointment but an artistic triumph. It never reached a wide audience, particularly because it's not easy to sell. There's no explosions, no clear villains, or no cathartic ending. Instead, it offers atmosphere, tension, and an intimate look at mental illness, things that live better in reflection than in multiplexes. It became, in time, one of those hidden gems critics talk about more than audiences who actually watch it. Now, still, in retrospect, Spider stands as one of Cronenberg's most introspective achievements. It's a film that asks its audience to live inside delusions, to experience how trauma reshapes memory and how guilt becomes identity. It's a companion piece to Cronenberg's later meditative films like A History of Violence and Eastern Promises, but far lonelier and more internal. The reward is in its subtlety, is in the way Fiennes in fact face twitches with a thought he can't speak, or the way Richardson's two personas bleed into one another like ink in water. On Blu-ray, Spider preserves that texture beautifully. The muted palette is intact. The film still looks grainy, rough, almost documentary-like. The sound mix keeps the whispers and background hums alive, while the bonus interviews reveal how Cronenberg intentionally stripped away any stylistic excess to stay true to the novel's intimacy. Collectors who appreciate psychological dramas like Naked Lunch, Memento, or The Machinist will find Spider a rewarding addition to their shelves. So does Spider entertain you? Not in the usual sense, but it challenges. It forces you to look at how memory deceives and how identity can collapse under guilt. I would say it's a dark poetic film, slow but unforgettable. And it is also a masterpiece for those who find beauty in brokenness, and perhaps a mirror for anyone who's ever wondered if their own recollections could betray them. In conclusion, Spider isn't about madness, it's about the fragility of perception, and Cronenberg reminds us with quiet precision that the scariest monsters are not the ones outside our door, but the ones that whisper softly inside our mind. Now, this movie is a must watch.